Welcome back now. As promised, the news in detail. Let's begin once again in India, where 36 children have died of suspected acute encephalitis in the last 48 hours in Bihar state. Doctors say over 130 more are suffering from that disease in the state's hospitals. They say most deaths have occurred from a sudden and extreme drop in the blood sugar level, which could have triggered the disease. Acute encephalitis is a deadly mosquito-borne illness characterized by high fever and brain inflammation. Bihar's flood-prone northern districts suffer routine outbreaks due to poor sanitation and health facilities. Well, India will evacuate 300,000 people from the coastal state of Gujarat before Cyclone Vayu makes landfall. The hurricane-strength cyclone will hit the Indian coastline between Porbandar and Mahuva on Thursday morning. It will be the first cyclone to strike Gujarat in more than 2 decades. The National Disaster Management Authority is deploying 39 teams in the state and the Union Territory of Diu. Last month, over 60 people died in Odisha when Cyclone Fani caused massive destruction. 10 Chinese vessels have sought shelter in neighboring Maharashtra to avoid the storm. On to Sudan now. The opposition alliance there has agreed to suspend its civil disobedience movement and resume talks with the military. The Ethiopian mediator Mahmoud Darir is currently visiting Sudan. In a press conference, Darir said talks to restore a civilian administration will begin soon. Ahead of the meeting, the military council agreed to release political prisoners as a confidence-building measure. It said it arrested a number of soldiers linked to last week's Khartoum sit-in massacre. The UN Security Council has called on the ruling military and protesters to resolve the crisis without further violence. The UN has condemned the deadly attack on residents in central Darfur state by army forces that killed 11 people. Well, Yemen's Houthi rebels have attacked another Saudi airport, this time with a cruise missile in the southwest of the kingdom. The Saudi-led coalition confirmed the Houthi attack, saying 26 people were wounded in that strike. The latest strike came a day after Riyadh said it intercepted 2 drones fired by the Iranian-backed group in Yemen. The Saudi press agency said air defenses intercepted 2 Yemeni drones targeting Khamis Musheit in the kingdom's south. Earlier, rebels said they targeted the King Khalid airbase near Khamis Musheit. Israel, meanwhile, has attacked Syria's radar installations in southern Tal al-Hara next to the Golan Heights. Syria confirmed the shooting down of several Israeli air-to-ground missiles. It accused Israel of conducting an electronic war and jamming its army radar system. No casualties have been reported so far. Earlier this month, Israel struck multiple positions of Syrian forces over a period of 24 hours, killing at least 15 soldiers. Elsewhere, U.S. President Donald Trump has said he will not allow the CIA to spy on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Reports have surfaced suggesting that Kim's murdered half-brother Kim Jong-nam had been a CIA informant. Speaking at the White House, Trump said he saw the Kim Jong-nam story, but nothing like that would happen under his watch. He told reporters North Korea did not conduct nuclear tests. The U.S. president said something positive will happen with Pyongyang.
I just received a beautiful letter from Kim Jong-un, and I think the relationship is very well, but I appreciated the letter. I saw the information about the CIA with respect to his brother or half-brother, and I would tell him that would not happen under my auspices, that's for sure. I wouldn't let that happen under my auspices.
Well, Trump has also unwittingly revealed details of his immigration deal with Mexico. Speaking to reporters at the White House there, Trump brandished a sheet of paper with details of the deal written on it. He described a plan to designate Mexico as a safe third country, something not already revealed by Mexico. Trump said the agreement is good for both the United States and Mexico. Well, the U.S. and Turkey have agreed to discuss their differences over Ankara's procurement of the S-400 Russian missile system. The U.S. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan said he will discuss the friction with Hulusi Akar, his Turkish counterpart. Washington had previously ignored Turkey's proposals to form a joint working group to solve the dispute. The United States has threatened to remove Turkey from the F-35 project over Ankara's purchase of the Russian missile system. An American airbase in Arizona has already stopped training Turkish F-35 pilots. Well, Russia has said it is ready to renew the New START program with the U.S., curtailing the use of nuclear weapons. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned no one would win in the event of a nuclear war. Lavrov said both countries have already reached a unanimous agreement over that issue and just need to reaffirm their positions. He said the agreement would diffuse worldwide tensions and anxiety. Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump declared his support for a trilateral New START. The Kremlin has repeatedly called for the renewal of the treaty, but Trump has called for a new arrangement. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has been formally sworn in as Kazakhstan's second elected president. He won 70% of the vote in the presidential election earlier this week. Tokayev is a hand-picked successor to ex-leader Nursultan Nazarbayev. Tokayev has taken the presidential oath and has kissed the flag in Nur-Sultan. For 12 million registered voters, Tokayev was the only familiar face among 7 presidential hopefuls. China has said it will respond firmly if the United States escalates trade tensions. The Foreign Ministry said China doesn't want to worsen the situation, but it is not afraid of a trade war. China's response is a response to U.S. warnings of more tariffs on Chinese goods. President Donald Trump has warned of extra duties on Chinese exports. He said they would be imposed if a deal cannot be done at this month's G20 summit. Trump said he will be meeting his Chinese counterpart at the summit in Osaka. China, though, has not confirmed that possible meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping. On to Algeria now, where hundreds of students have taken to the streets of the capital Algiers to protest against the ruling elite. Calling for electoral reforms, they have demanded the removal of the interim setup.
The North African country fell into political unrest after the removal of ex-president Bouteflika. The president of the Council of the Nation, the upper house of parliament, Abdelkader Ben Salah, was appointed interim president to organize new presidential elections in July. The Constitutional Council angered the public when it scrapped elections scheduled for July 4th.
Our demands are that the remnants of the regime will leave, that we have honorable and transparent elections. Our demand is that the remnants of the regime will leave. A civilian state and not a military state. We want a civilian state and not a military rule. We demand that they leave and we refuse to have dialogues with them.
Since its independence in 1962, Algeria has been ruled by a narrow class of people.
Well, the European Commission has said the election of a new Prime Minister will not change Britain's EU exit deal. This is a response to Boris Johnson saying he would withhold billions owed to the EU to get a new deal. After 3 years of Brexit deadlock, the Conservative Party is choosing a new leader who will become Premier by the end of July. That race has been overshadowed by Brexit and the deal agreed upon with the European Union. The European Commission said competition for Britain's top job will not affect the deal. Now, police in London have applied for a 12-hour extension to the custody of MQM founder Altaf Hussain. Hussain is currently being held at the Southwark police station following his arrest early on Tuesday. A decision on whether to charge him or release him is expected soon. Police say Hussain is being held in connection with multiple cases of incitement of violence in his 2016 speeches. He could be charged under Section 44 of Britain's Serious Crime Act of 2007 concerning intentionally encouraging or assisting violence. The MQM is an influential party in the urban areas of Pakistan's Sindh province, especially the port city of Karachi. Hussain fled Pakistan in 1992 and has lived in the United Kingdom ever since. He's wanted in Pakistan on charges of terrorism, murder, money laundering, and hate speech. Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency has reportedly asked the UK to extradite Hussain. For more on that now, we're joined by Pakistan's state lawyer in Britain, Toby Aslam. Toby, thanks for joining us here at Indus News. Toby, according to British legal procedures, what do you think, the next steps that police may take against the detained man, widely identified as Altaf Hussain?
Well, first of all, we know that he was arrested yesterday on allegations of incitement to commit acts of violence. We would expect for him to have been interviewed by the officers from the counter-terrorism command, known as SO15 of the Metropolitan Police yesterday. It is likely that today, in consultation with the Crown Prosecution Service, they will make a decision on charging him. And if they make the decision on charging him, as we certainly expect them to, then he will be brought in front of a magistrate for the first appearance, and then the case will then be set down for the next stage of the proceedings. But certainly what we can expect is during the course of today to have further information as to whether he is in fact going to be charged.
And just contextualize this for our viewers if you can, Toby. Under British law, what punishments are prescribed for individuals convicted of hate speech?
First of all, it's important to distinguish between hate speech and incitement. What he is likely to face is incitement to commit acts of violence, not hate speech. Hate speech is a different crime. Even though there have been a number of speeches that he has given that could be broadly construed as hate speech, what he is in fact being charged with is for a speech that he gave that resulted in acts of violence being committed by his followers in Karachi. And it is a very serious charge, and it is a charge that carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment if the resulting violence results in the death of someone. So, considering the seriousness of this charge, if convicted, we would certainly expect him to be convicted based on the evidence, credible evidence that has been presented. He could receive a substantial sentence of imprisonment.
And then as a final thought, Toby, considering that Altaf Hussain is a British citizen, does UK law provide for his extradition to Pakistan to face charges?
Well, the charges that he faces will be before a British court in relation to this case. Now, of course, I have been advising the Pakistani government for over a year now in relation to three separate matters. So there is the incitement, there are allegations of money laundering, and there's, of course, the allegation of a murder that was committed on the streets of London. Now, if the Pakistan authorities launch an investigation to prosecute him in Pakistan, provided it's not a case that carries the death penalty, or an assurance is given the death penalty wouldn't be applied, then there's no reason why he cannot be extradited to Pakistan to face trial. But for this matter, for the incitement matter, he will face trial in the United Kingdom, not in Pakistan.
Very well. Thank you, Toby, for that insight. We, of course, appreciate your time and speaking to us here at Indus News. Time now for a short break. I'll be back, though, with much more news after that. As begin this segment of the news bulletin in Europe. Italy has asked the EU for a chance to explain its economic plans before it is punished for failing to meet targets. More on that now in this report.
Is on a collision course with the EU over its mounting debt and the bloc's disciplinary action. Rome says it is committed to averting the large fines and measures that could alienate investors. EU Commission's outgoing President Jean-Claude Juncker said the bloc had no other choice.
We made it clear that we do think that Italy is moving in an unsound direction, and so we have to take relevant decisions in that field.
In a rare show of unity, the Italian coalition government's leaders agreed to address the EU's concerns. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said Italy alone cannot be held responsible for the crisis.
I can tell my friend that he has himself admitted to have gone in the wrong direction with the Greek crisis. I say it with affection. Before expecting us to admit we are mistaken, he should give me the possibility to better explain and the numbers.
Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini warned that Italy will not go cap in hand to anybody.
All the previous governments have surrendered regardless. In our case, there is a dialogue with the EU where we are protagonists. A dialogue between equals. We will not go cap in hand to anybody.
Italy's public debt was 132.2% of its GDP in 2018. It is forecast to rise a staggering 135% further. No member country has ever been fined for excessive debt by the EU. This would be the first procedure of its kind.
Well, Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May has urged global leaders to do more to tackle modern slavery. May said action is crucial to meeting the UN goal of ending the practice by 2030. She was speaking at the 108th International Labour Organization Conference in Geneva. The centenary session of the ILO estimated over 40 million people living in slavery worldwide. The British Prime Minister has pledged £10 million to stop children being exploited in agriculture in Africa. Theresa May also announced plans for an anti-slavery drive.
No leader worthy of the name can look the other way while men, women and children are held against their will, forced to work for a pittance or no pay at all, routinely beaten, raped and tortured. Those of us who can speak out, who have a platform from which to be heard, have a duty, a moral duty, to raise our voices on their behalf.
The French President Emmanuel Macron has warned the current capitalist model could lead to war. Macron has said modern capitalism has boosted social inequality.
The 108th International Labour Conference is taking place in Geneva. The session is celebrating the International Labour Organization centenary. Addressing the conference, French President Emmanuel Macron warned of the threats to democracy posed by capitalism.
Le peuple.
When the people, whatever their social status, don't share in the progress, they cannot support the political regime which is before them. That is what is happening in our democracies. This explains why some are attracted to authoritarianism, which seems to provide more efficient protection from external threats.
The president says social inequality has transformed extremist politics into an attractive business. He called the ongoing Yellow Vest protests a very tough crisis.
France went through a very tough crisis these past months, but which I personally took as an opportunity because the French people never give up. And when they say the things they did loudly, I think one needs to listen and acknowledge what was badly done with great humility.
The ILO was created in 1919 in the aftermath of the First World War. This year's session has brought together 5,000 delegates from 187 countries.
Uber has selected Melbourne to be the first non-US city for its flying taxi, expected to launch in 2023. The Uber Elevate Summit in Washington announced its vision for flying taxis as a way to ease traffic congestion. The aerial service will be included on Uber's smartphone app and will include ground and air transport. Test flights are to start in 2020 with commercial operations planned for 2023. Melbourne was named the third official pilot city for Uber Air, joining Dallas and Los Angeles. Syrian wheat farmers are expecting a bumper crop this year. Much of it lies in the semi-autonomous northwestern Kurdish region.
A bumper wheat crop would normally be good news in a war-torn country, but not in Syria. The country's biggest wheat harvest in years has sparked tensions between Damascus and the semi-autonomous Kurds. Many farmers have condemned the politicization of agriculture.
They should not be taking advantage of the farmer's livelihood by using it to exert more political pressure on them. They need to respect his freedom, whether he is selling his crop for 185 Syrian pounds or for a different amount. They need to support the farmer because he's living in poverty.
Damascus is hoping to attract Kurdish farmers with higher prices. Last month, the Kurds increased their buying price from 150 to 160 Syrian pounds per kilogram, but they still can't compete with the Syrian government, which is offering farmers 185 Syrian pounds per kilogram. But farmers complain prices are still too low.
I will not sell my harvest to either of the two parties. I will leave it at home until it rots, because the prices are very low and do not cover our expenses.
Using wheat as a trump card is an important negotiation tactic for the Kurds and their main ally, the US. Damascus and the Kurds have initiated talks over the fate of Syria's northeast. So far, no agreement has been reached.
Let's move on now to Lebanon, where a Syrian-German band has dazzled audiences with its fusion of Eastern traditional and Western electric music.
Huge crowds of people swayed and twirled together on electronic music in the live concert of Shkhon Band. The musicians from the East and West treated their Lebanese audience to a blend of old Arabic songs and Western electronic music. A Syrian musician, Amin Khair, who fled the conflict in Syria in 2015, said his music comes with a message from a refugee.
From the beginning, the project started with a message saying that I'm not just a refugee, and every song performed, folk or other, is about memories in my head. Events that once happened to me, a day, a friend that I lost, a house that was destroyed, an uncle that died, an uncle that got sick. This is the story.
The fusion band is garnering fans from across countries. Fans believe reviving old songs is a proof that music has no time or place.
Their music is dazzling and really beautiful. It has something very special, some oriental with deep house. The concert was really dazzling.
The band has also performed in Germany, France, Denmark and Jordan.
Let's begin business news in Asia, where shares and markets there have declined after the White House took a tough line on trade talks with China. Mainland Chinese shares slipped by the end of the morning session. The Shanghai Composite has declined 0.57%, while the Shenzhen component also fell 0.42%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped by the afternoon as protests continued in that city. In Europe, shares have pulled back from their three-week high. Elsewhere, the Nikkei in Japan traded flat. Over onto South Korea, the Kospi slipped 0.13% as well. Time now to find out what the weather is like around the world. And you're now all caught up. Thanks very much for watching here on Business.